the psychology stack behind getting people to actually show up for your webinar. Today, I have prepared a treat for you to make sure that your Perpetual Profit Engine has this vital element. Let's get into it, and I'll talk about the psychology behind it as well. This is your Perpetual Profit Engine. So today we're going to cover this part, which is the email sequence, number one, and the AI bot, also the live webinar itself. So we're covering three things. And this, as you can see, is a very important cog of the whole engine here. Let's get into it. First of all, let's talk about why most webinars have poor attendance. You see, most people I have encountered in this space, they are fearful of sending out too many emails. They're afraid people might unsubscribe. Look, the fact is, if people sign up for your webinar, and they unsubscribe because you send them too many emails, those people are probably cranks, and those people are probably not gonna sign up for what you have to offer anyway. So it's kind of like good riddance to get rid of them, because if you're afraid you might offend a few people and that affects your show up, then seriously, those guys are not worth your time in the first place. And that's been our experience. So don't be afraid to send out the emails before the event. And the other thing, because there is no proper thought behind it, there is no excitement, and there's no trust generated prior to the webinar itself. So when people show up, they're showing up kind of cold. They don't know you from a bar of soap. They might have just been attracted by your topic, but you haven't given them any context, any background about you. So they're basically coming to your webinar and they're just folding their arms going, I'll see what this person has to say. That kind of attitude, and that it makes it super hard for you to convince people to take the next step, which is to buying your program, right? And third thing is they don't have a proper sequence. They just randomly select a few emails and send it out without any thought about the psychology or understanding behind why we are sending out the different email sequences and why we are reaching out via AI bots and so on. So this is why most webinars have poor attendance, and we get people coming to us and going, hey, how do you get so many people showing up to my webinars? It's kind of like I couldn't imagine this many people showing up, and that's because we implement what I'm about to show you today. So let me give you one example. Vince, we got 13,000 people to register for his webinar series over a period of 1 month. And he had 4,000 people attending his webinars. That's over 30%, right? So that's not too bad. And I will show you the exact mindset, the psychology, and the exact emails that we are sending out to get this kind of results. Okay, so before I jump into it, I want to say that a lot of the psychology behind why we're sending out these emails is based on Robert Cialdini, and he wrote 2 books. One is Persuasion, and the other one is Persuasion. And if you're a marketer, you would know these books, and you should have read them, by the way, because these are the fundamental psychology principles behind why we do what we're doing in this email sequence and prior to the webinar. All right. So number one, you want to have your drip sequence. And today I want to use the Inception theme. I'm not sure if you've seen that movie Inception. I know I'm a little bit older. If you're younger, you might have not seen that movie Inception by Leonardo DiCaprio, but the whole idea behind it is that he goes into people's dreams and plants ideas. And that's what we want you to do with your email sequences and your pre-webinar contact with the prospects, is that you want to do that Inception thing, plant ideas in their heads, right? So we want to have the drip sequence happening, and the drip sequence is the whole concept is every touch point that you have with your emails, with your AI bot, it's engineered to move your prospect closer to making that purchase, which in this case is showing up for your webinar. Because if they don't show up, they're not going to buy, right? All right, so we have, first of all, the welcome email. And then we have maybe 2-3 emails, which is an indoctrination sequence. Then as the date of the webinar comes closer, we have a countdown sequence. This could be 3 days long. It could be 5 days long. It just depends when you start promoting your webinar to actually the webinar or the event happening. And finally, you want to have some reminders. These reminder emails might start just the night before, 24 hours before, and then on the day of the event itself. So as you can see, there's 4 different types of emails. So we'll go into each one of them right now. So first of all, you have your welcome email. And in terms of Cialdini's principles, we are wanting to get commitment and consistency. I won't go into these various principles. That's something for you to read. But these are 2 principles we are feeding on, which means if people have already committed to do something, they are usually demonstrating consistency in their actions that follow, right? So if they say, for example, tell someone that, hey, I want to basically go to the gym today, chances are they are going to go to the gym versus if they just thought of going to the gym and then they're like, oh, okay, I'm feeling lazy, so I'm not going. But if they announce it to a few friends that I'll be at the gym today, chances of them going to the gym is way higher. That's consistency. So in the welcome email, what you should have is details about the event, what's the date, what is the time, and maybe your link to the webinar itself, and just a bit of write-up about the key points, what they're going to learn so that they are reminded. So people will then feel, yep, I'm registered for this event. You might want to get them to take some actions. For example, get them to add the event to their calendar. So you might want to have a link and where they can add the event to either the Google or Apple Calendar, because that's what most people use. And the other thing is you want to get them to download maybe a worksheet, because if they start engaging, if they start downloading the worksheet for the webinar, chances of them showing up is way higher, right? And in this email, you want to set the expectations for communication as well. Tell them that you are going to send them these emails that are coming starting an hour later or tomorrow, and it will lead up to the event. And the reason you can give them is because we want you to actually start your transformation right now before the event itself, because this is such an important thing that you start transforming. We want to give you the tools and the content, the tips to start your transformation right away, so that when people get your emails, they're not like, why is this guy sending me so many emails? Because you have already set the stage here. And then the next sequence is the indoctrination sequence, which usually can be 2 or 3 emails that you send out right after they sign up for your event. So you could send it out like 1 hour later after they register. You could send it 1 day later, 2nd day, 3rd day, right? So the whole purpose here of having an indoctrination sequence is, according to Cialdini, this is where you want to build your authority. You want to build your social proof. So you want to get them, in essence, to start trusting you as the authority, because most people that register for your webinar, they may not know who you are, especially if it comes from ads, right? So this is where you need to build that authority and social proof. And how do you do that? You want to create the expert status by maybe mentioning case studies, testimonials of people that you've helped before, that you've helped to transform in the transformation that they want, like people just like them, so that when people read those emails, they're like, this person is just like me. Maybe I can transform too. Maybe I can level up to how this person has leveled up. Right? And you might want to consider telling your personal story, because stories, people love stories, first of all. Secondly, if you can embed in your story how you experience the personal transformation or why you're doing the thing that you're doing to help them transform. And in that story, you can also use that as an opportunity to build authority, so that you say, hey, I've walked in your shoes before, I've done this, and I have gotten these results for my personal life, so I know how to help you too. So I think that personal story is super important. And the other thing about personal stories is that it builds likability as well, so that they know you. When they show up for the webinar, they feel like they know you. Hey, I know this Terence guy because I actually read his story before, how he basically failed in business before and how he rose up, and now he can actually help me to transform my business too, right? So that's why you have that personal story in place. And it's great if you can share some personal pictures as well. Like, for example, pictures of you and your family, you and your dog, you and your son or daughter having a good time, so that they feel that you're human just like them, not some guru on some pedestal kind of thing or some guy that has no connection with them. So this is what I encourage you to do as well. And if you have clients that perfectly represent the customer avatar that you're serving, you might want to interview them. Get them on an interview, and basically that interview can show them how you help clients transform in their lives as well. So interviews with clients is something that you might want to consider as well. If you can't interview, share it in the form of a case study. Okay. And the other thing is you need to agitate the pain as well in this indoctrination sequence. So remind them how it was like before the transformation so that they can identify, and that pain agitates them to actually take action. It's just like, for example, if I told my teenage daughter to, hey, can you move seats from here to here because this chair is more comfortable? It's going to be like dragging an elephant, right? But if she sits on the chair that's really uncomfortable, that maybe has like poking her and it's really uncomfortable, or you light a fire beneath the chair, you don't have to tell them, they're going to move, right? So that's how it is. People will react to pain and take action because of pain. So use this opportunity to basically give them some pain. Okay, in a good way, because you want to help them, right? Then next thing is you have a countdown sequence. So leading up to the event, you have this countdown sequence where you can basically create the scarcity and anticipation, right? So how do you do that? The countdown sequence is where you have some open loops, kind of hint what they are going to get at the webinar. Like, for example, if you're a property investor and you want to teach people how to invest in property, maybe you could say something along the lines like, you won't believe how I got this first deal where I made $100,000. It was just pure dumb luck, but yet it was architect. So show up for the webinar and I'm going to tell you the full story. These open loops basically is like the brain needs to have it close. If you allude to a certain story that you're going to tell or certain thing that you're going to show at the webinar itself, and that relates to them, the chances of them showing up is way higher. And maybe you want to also create some scarcity by saying there is no replays if that is the case. And if it is the case where you are oversubscribed and you say, hey, my Zoom link can only allow 100 people in and we got 300 people registered for this webinar, so come early, otherwise you're going to miss out, right? So that creates that scarcity as well. And the other thing, you might want to use the carrot, where you say, oh, I have this unannounced bonus that I just thought of that may be useful for you, which is a recording of my interview with such and such person, which could be a famous person, and that will be a bonus for you if you show up for my webinar. That is what you can include in your countdown sequence. And finally, the reminders. Reminders is where you want to remind them that, hey, you've signed up for this event, and to demonstrate your consistency, you should show up. So the whole concept here revolves around consistency and also FOMO, right? So can say stuff like, hey, today is the day you honor your commitment to begin your transformation in your body, for example. You could say that, hey, other coaches are getting this blueprint. Don't miss out on this blueprint by missing out on the webinar. So this is more like FOMO, social proof kind of thing. So the reminders should be short and sweet. Keep them as short and sweet as possible, 3-4 sentences. And the whole thing is you want to supply the link so that they can click and join the webinar at the right time. Right. And you might want to supplement this with other forms of communication, which is like SMS, Telegram, WhatsApp, where you can basically send them this reminder sequence. Now, let's move on to the pre-event AI bot. The pre-event AI bot is designed so that it feels like they have communicated to a human being about the webinar. So this is about consistency and commitment, again, with Cialdini's concepts. And you might want to have this AI bot reach out with an SMS, WhatsApp, Messenger, or even voice, right? If your voice bot is good enough, this can be a thing too. But people rarely pick up their phones nowadays, which is, where you might want to consider all these other platforms as well. And this whole thing is to have a human-like conversation, because if they said yes to another human being, they feel they have said yes to another human being, the chances of them showing up is much higher. And the other thing is the AI bot here, the whole purpose is to either confirm or reschedule the appointment. If they cannot make it on the particular day that they have said they have signed up, then reschedule them for the next week or the next month's webinar, right? And say that you're going going to send out all the details to them. And the other thing you might want to do is to make them feel heard and important. So asking a question like, hey, what's your number one challenge when it comes to this? That gives them that feeling of being heard, and at least that also creates some engagement, and the chances for them showing up as a result is way higher. This also becomes a data gathering exercise for you. It's market research. So what is the number one challenge that people are saying that they have? And you could eventually modify your webinar topic accordingly. And finally, I'll talk about the webinar itself. I mentioned this in day one, but I just want to give you a bit more detail so that you don't make this absolutely critical mistake, okay? Which is, make sure you don't teach. You are there to help them change their belief system. Now, actually, I spoke to Vince, which I showed earlier in the slides before, and one of the things he said to me is that the goal here is not to teach people, because you only have 60 minutes, 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours. If you are trying to teach them, they are going to get overwhelmed, and it is a disservice to them. The greatest value, he said, is when you help them to change the belief system so that they believe that they can actually now do it. That is the biggest value he believes you can provide. And I totally agree with that, because it's like you want to help them get clarity, not to overwhelm them with things to do. And if you show too much tips, they think, oh, I can do it too. So the whole goal is you want to review the principles. And by doing this, you are actually building your authority rather than giving them the actual things to do. Because if they go and do, say, for example, trading options, and you show them a few, oh, this is what you do to trade options, then you're basically doing them a disservice, because they could go out there and lose a whole bunch of money and start blaming you, saying your system doesn't work, because they don't have the full context. So make sure you're revealing principles, not teaching them the step-by-step on how to do it. And the other thing is, if you can reveal this blind spot, tell them, hey, you have been doing this for the longest time, but the reason you're not succeeding in, say, trading, for example, is because you are missing this thing. This is your blind spot. And that aha moment is worth much more to them than the actual telling them how to do it. So you want to provide a roadmap, okay, a blueprint, so that they can see themselves following that roadmap to get to where they want to get to. That's where you also create that chasm where, hey, you now have the roadmap, but let me, as a coach, guide you through this so that we can make you successful, so that you can experience that transformation. All right, some examples just to illustrate this point. You can show them the math behind building an 8-figure property portfolio in 5 years, but don't show them the step-by-step process to go and negotiate a bank loan, because they might negotiate the bank loan and buy something stupid and get themselves in financial trouble. Show them the steps. Maybe there's 5 steps to close high-ticket sales. Don't give them the sales scripts to memorize, because if they don't have the whole context, they're not going to use the sales scripts properly. Show them, for example, a blueprint to crowdfund the idea so that they can start their business. Don't show them how to write copy for their crowdfunding project, because they just may not do the right thing, and then they will waste that money in doing something silly and not actually deliver to the clients what they promised in the crowdfunding project. So guys, I hope you got tons of value from today, because today you learn about the types of emails you need to send out, the psychology behind those emails, why you have an AI bot, and what it's supposed to do. And finally, we talked about the webinar itself, what you should be showing at the webinar, and why you should be teaching at the webinar. I hope you got tons of value from it. If you want to build your Perpetual Profit Engine where you can scale predictably and confidently, then I suggest reaching out to us. Let's have a friendly chat. No obligation. We got a right fit. Let's build it out for you. So just click on the link below and we can have that chat. So I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of this mini course.